Hi everybody, so this is group 3 activity. I watched all 4 videos instead of just 2. And the questions we have are interesting at best because some of them are more difficult than others to answer since I was born and raised in central Wyoming and there's not really a lot of diversity here. So starting with question 1, I am many groups. I am a Generation X baby, so I'm very much so a hands-on lab rat doer type. I'm obviously female. I also happen to be a single mother. I am disabled, and I came from a very poverty-stricken background. So some of the ways that being a part of these groups has shaped the way I work, volunteer, learn, and everything else is I am always there for my children. They're first, last, and foremost at all costs. And when I manage, I make sure that parents are able to put their kids first because that has to happen. I have made sure that when I have extras, I try and make sure that I can spread the food to others too, or whatever extra I got, because I know what it's like to be in dire straits and kind of be skipped over because of it. Some of the other things that I have been shaped and formed by was, the welfare system itself. They're not very great. And once you're in that system because your parents are absent, whatever, they have a tendency to abuse their power quite extensively. I remember things like the Oklahoma bombing and Jeffrey Dahmer and Unabomber and the Oklahoma bombing in Columbine, which made it so scary to think about getting a job or a government job for that matter. It was scary to think about going to school. Columbine, incident really wasn't terribly long of a distance from me. It wasn't like it was on the other side of the Mississippi. It was, it was just a little while south from where I live. And, then we were shaped by things like Kurt Cobain and the grunge era and grunge music and things, and his death and the death of one of my really good friends, Matthew. That was hard. We were all really, really, really affected by that, and we've got a lot of different laws in our state because of it, which is good. But now that half of our community is pretty much, they've gone into hiding essentially because nobody feels like it's safe to be out anywhere. So those are some of the things that makes it so that we look at those and we apply that to our situations with jobs, and we see this person as, what if we were in their shoes? And we try and listen, and I try and understand, and I try and accommodate where I can, and then when I can't, I try and do what I can to at least assist in some manner when it's possible and appropriate. But that's kind of some of the things that have formed who I am and how I am, especially with my generation here locally, especially. So some of that we're a lot more accepting in some areas, and some areas we're still in need of, I guess, our own guidance. I'm supposed to describe a time when I felt like managing differences was being done well in my workplace, volunteer organization, school setting, or whatever. And what it looked like, well, being from central Wyoming where I'm at, growing up, you could count the non-white families on almost to one hand, two hands if you borrow a couple of fingers. But we really didn't have any diversity for any of that. Uh, there wasn't really big age type stuff that I ever had to deal with in my first jobs. In fact, I think there was only like maybe 3 or 4 years difference between myself and management in my very first several jobs. I didn't actually get to learn about diversity in the workplace too terribly much until recently. Um, I currently work for Kmart, and we have 5 generations of employees at my place of employment. We do have the matures, we have baby boomers, we have Generation X, we have Generation Y, and we even have some of the Generation Z that's just starting to, get old enough to come into the workforce as well. So that is like a really big deal to me. And then we also have a gentleman from Mexico who doesn't speak very much English, but I know he's telling me I'm tall all the time and smiles a lot because he doesn't speak very much English and I don't know Spanish. So communication barriers are a big deal there, just verbally in general. And then we have a lady that works here that I think she's Filipino, maybe, I don't know. She's from that area though, like an Asian or Korean descent, Filipino. I don't know. She's awesome. We have some communication barriers because sometimes she says words that don't quite mean what she thinks they mean, or at least the way she says them. The way she'll say them does not mean what she means it to mean. But we get along great with her. She's one of our managers actually, and she's just phenomenal. And so she does really well because she's always trying to learn. Mostly though, because we do work super skeleton crews, most of us really work pretty individually. We very rarely see another employee at all because there's just not enough of us. So that diversity, I don't know how it gets managed since everybody's just kind of in their own department and free range. I'm supposed to also describe a time when I felt differences were not being well managed, and what could be done differently, or what was done incorrectly, what was left out. Again, I haven't had any experience with any of this, so I really couldn't tell you. Even when I worked in the hospital, I think the most diversity I seen there was we had a family that had to come in from Lander once. So it was the patient and almost the entire reservation. And I really didn't see anything handled incorrectly. It was, great that the family was there to support. They are a very tight-knit group in that mannerism for their culture. And, nurses, phlebotomists, which was my position, and doctors, tried to work around it. I had only seen him be really, really rude once by telling the family they had to leave. And I think that was actually for a privacy thing, even though they couldn't communicate that very well, and they might have probably wanted somebody who could speak nicer. But I just don't have a lot of experience with any kind of diversity other than I know that we have 5 generations at work, and I've gone out of my way personally to get to know each and every one of them to the best of my abilities, and I'm good friends with all of them. We communicate really well, and because I'm always so willing to go and help them when I'm done with my work, if they're there, they're willing to do the same thing for me, so that has worked out really well. And I don't really have a whole lot else I can say other than I really look forward to seeing your guys' responses. I'm hoping that some of you have had a little bit more life outside of the small town I grew up in and have some diversity experiences to share, so that I will have that to add to my little educational repertoire to know kind of what I should be watching for more in the future as I progress towards my own leadership career in management and administration. So can't wait to see you guys. Thanks.